في ربوع المجد كنا نصنع النصر المبين ونبيد الظلم إنا نولى نور اليقين في ربوع المجد كنا
وين صلوا عليه
Yusuf is a heretic and I excommunicate him.
نصر المبين.
Thank you for that wonderful intro, Yusuf. Greeting, my viewers. Christ has risen. God bless you all. Recently, you would have seen I participated for about 10 minutes in a quick short debate with this Egyptian coptic partialist who immediately became hostile as soon as I entered the panel, and I think we know why. I have to say, Lent was a really great blessing for me this year. It taught me patience, and practicing true Christian virtues, I was able to apologize to many people who had wronged and rebuilt burnt bridges. And this was something I was truly lacking for the most part prior to Lent. And I think I've worked on this much more, and I'm still getting there, but one of my biggest inspirations for this was Saint Jerome, who struggled with the degradation of others and the same struggles I go with. Anyways, this debate occurred, and as you saw by the introduction, I was debating in a toilet, which I was present at work at that moment. Still, with all of his notes and his computer in front of him, to no avail did this pseudo-intellectual fail to refute the arguments, but he also reduced his position to partialism. Bizarrely, he did not follow the first point, that under the assessing of the logical coherence, we can make a case for why the fathers would support the Diophysite position as opposed to the Miaphysite position, if they're under the inspiration. And he tied up his laces and tried to sprint away, claiming that the fathers could be wrong and I could be correct in my logic.
Hypothetically speaking, what if the fathers were just said something like that doesn't follow? That would just mean they're wrong in that specific context.
So the fathers affirm contradiction.
You're anachronistic and read back into the fathers based on your own pseudo-metaphysics. What if the fathers were just said something like that doesn't follow? That would just mean they're wrong in that specific context.
So the fathers affirm contradiction.
The fathers were just said something like that doesn't follow. That doesn't follow. Doesn't follow. Doesn't follow. Doesn't follow.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Does this now mean inspired fathers by the Holy Spirit are illogical and thus we should reject them? Of course not. I cannot count the amount of times he wanted to sprint away to his word fallacy that was already addressed previously.
You're trying to direct the conversation somewhere else. You're trying to
You had nearly 2 months to respond. What did you come up with? You proved yourself an utter liar when I refuted all of your slanderous claims against me. What did you have? Nothing. You haven't responded to any of the claims I made. Now here is the following argument I ran over him with and flushed his rebuttal and position on the toilet. And I hope you enjoy this video and the embarrassing sentiment this individual left on everyone, including his own community.
Brother, what?
Can you show me how it doesn't?
You're literally saying it doesn't teach it in hypotheton. Literally the same thing Maximus says in that letter. Literally the same thing Maximus said in that letter.
Hold on.
Maximus says the same thing. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Lord have mercy. The quote you brought, Maximus says the same thing.
Hey, stop freaking out. I'm talking to
Who is freaking out, bro? You're literally making a verbatim fallacy. And the quote you brought up, Maximus says the same thing. Don't tell me to stop.
Hey,
Okay.
if we're just going to talk over each other, Agan, you're not going to unmute while I'm speaking. If we're just going to talk over each other, this isn't going to go anywhere.
All right, guys.
We're not trying to dogpile Agan. We're trying to actually have a cordial conversation. And the reason that you just spoke over me again, Agan. Can you not control yourself?
Can you not control yourself?
Bro.
No, I can control your microphone though.
Look at you. You have to mute me when
I have a question.
all of you guys on this panel. Because
I'm trying to keep it orderly.
All right, everybody, hold on.
I'm saying that if you're going to talk over
guys can use the positive pretext I asked.
I've got to go in 5 minutes. Let me like address this.
You don't even affirm their theology, Wayne. Why are you pulling up? You don't affirm that the divine hypostasis intrinsically changes. You told me there's two hypostases when we debated. What are you doing up here now?
1 second. Relax yourself. I've got to go in 5 minutes. You said it's a composite hypostasis, correct?
Damascene and Maximus affirmed the composite hypostasis.
Well, 1 second. I'm not asking for a too quick way. I'm asking for your position. Do you affirm a composite hypostasis?
Not in the sense of Maximus and Damascene.
I'm saying, do you affirm that the divinity and the humanity are parts in one hypostasis?
The divine hypostasis and the flesh hypostasis compose one hypostasis.
Are they parts?
They are constitutive elements.
Okay, so constitutive elements are taken as parts, correct?
According to John Chrysostom, yes.
Okay, perfect.
From Chrysostom?
1 second. I'm just assessing the logical coherence of your position. Any quote you bring up is not going to be demonstrable of your position on logical grounds in the case that we can have a reinterpretation of every single father if my position is proven to be logically coherent. Sorry, one second.
That doesn't follow.
Yeah, it does actually, because
you just said if my position is logically coherent, I can read that back anachronistically into the fathers. That's what you just said.
One second. What I'm saying here is that if you're given two interpretations, one is more favorable under the condition that the other is more logically coherent and parsimonious than the other, correct?
That has nothing to do with any historical view of it.
Yes, it does. No one cares about historical logical coherence.
Hypothetically speaking, what if the fathers were just said something like that doesn't follow? That would just mean they're wrong in that specific context.
So the fathers affirm contradictions.
You're trying to anachronistically read back into the fathers based on your own pseudo-metaphysics.
So the fathers affirmed contradictions then?
No, I'm saying when you...
Okay, so perfect. So then under what I'm claiming, your position affirms a contradiction, therefore your interpretation is wrong.
But that doesn't follow for any historical examination. I'm not claiming the fathers made any contradiction.
But one second.
Hold on. Let me talk, because I know what you're doing. Let me talk. I know what you're doing. When you have any document before you, obviously we both believe in God. We both believe in the church fathers. We're not going to say any of them have a contradiction. I'm going to argue they're Miaphysite. You're going to argue they're Diophysite. What you're trying to do is run away from the fathers and take it to a logical argument so that you can try and anachronistically read back into the fathers. Even if I grant that, Wayne, are you not the same person who affirmed two hypostases to me?
We both affirm two hypostases.
No, you affirmed two hypostases when I gave you the two definitions, and you're a Diophysite. You keep them as two.
Yeah, okay, first of all, you define being as something which is just as we define nature, okay? And second of all, you're like critiquing this anhypostatic position up here. Like, I can give a defensible comment, but not now, because currently I'm in my work. Currently I'm in my work bathroom and I have to go in 5 minutes. So can we please get to the arguments?
Okay, I'm going to tell you one more time. You don't affirm what I'm arguing against them. You would never say what they just said, that there's an intrinsic predication of the human properties inside of God, the Word.
Dude, I really don't care, dude. Like, it's so simple.
If you don't care, if you don't care and you're trying to, if you don't care and you're trying to direct,
just listen for a second.
If you don't care and you're trying to direct the conversation somewhere else, you're the same guy who told me it
because I'm addressing the thing you said about
who told me there's two hypostases. You're the same person who told me there's two hypostases in Christ.
Okay, you can keep appealing to the past debate, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with what I said and what you think I said, okay? So stop wasting time.
Can we please get to the discussion? You just conceded that you said it earlier.
Can we please get to the discussion?
Okay, I want to have a discussion on how you affirm two hypostases. Can we have that discussion?
See, okay. I told you before. I have 5 minutes, and I'm addressing the thing you said before about a composite hypostasis.
My argument wasn't made against your...
I'm talking about your position about a composite hypostasis, okay?
You want to talk about my position? Okay, we can talk about my position. What's your argument?
Okay, perfect. All I asked, I'm just asking for some clarification around what you mean by composite hypostasis from the things you said before.
Okay. What about it?
You said they were constitutive elements.
Yes.
The divinity and the humanity.
The divine hypostasis and the flesh hypostasis, to be specific.
Yeah, so to this one continuous, quasi-continuous divine nature, right? They're two constitutive elements, so taken as parts.
When I'm referring to the divine hypostasis and the flesh hypostasis, you can speak of them as parts to Emmanuel.
They're taken as what, sorry?
They're taken as elements to Emmanuel, the divine hypostasis and the flesh.
Okay, but dude, so I'm saying here is, if they're said to be constituents to a continuous whole, then they're taken to be parts to this thing. If something is a constituent, then it's taken as a part.
I'm telling you what the constituents are and what the whole is. I'm defining it for you.
Yeah, no, okay, so is it a part?
To the Emmanuel hypostasis?
Yeah, to the one hypostasis of the Son. That has both hypostases in it.
What do you mean hypostasis of the Son? Because you could be talking about the naked one.
The one incarnate nature.
Okay, the one incarnate nature of the Word, that hypostasis is composed of two hypostases. I already said that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that one incarnate, it has parts.
That one incarnate nature of the Word has parts, yes.
Okay, is a part identical to its whole?
The two parts in union together are identical.
Well, one sec, is a part identical to its whole? Is a leg identical to human?
The two, not for aggregation. I'm talking about for the two hypostases, when they're in union together, they're identical to the whole.
I'm not talking about if you want to go into aggregation, then that's something completely different, and you can read like Kit Fine. Yeah, it is. Listen. Is a part identical to its whole? Very simply.
I gave you the answer. In our Christological system, the two parts together in union are identical to the whole.
Okay, perfect. So whole is identical to... Okay, so what constitutes a whole is its plurality of things coming together. Now, there's a dispute on how you take constitution, like composition, whether you're like a mereological realist or not. But anyways, what I'm saying here is you yourself admitted that when parts come together in a specific way, then they constitute the whole. So therefore, a whole is identical to its plurality, its parts, not its parts. It's not
reducible to those two because this isn't an aggregate composition. This is a composition from two unlike parts.
Two unlike parts. Okay. It is a part.
I'll give you an example. When you have aggregate parts, for example, a bunch of trash, and you collect them into a heap, you can say that the whole is reducible to that plurality, and the whole can be counted as that plurality because it's identical to those plurality. I didn't tell you the two hypostases are identical to the one hypostasis. I said the two hypostases in union are identical to the one hypostasis. And because they're from different layers of reality, they don't aggregate a composition. And because they don't aggregate a composition,
everyone just heard that yap, right? Like Darth Dawkins and stuff like layers of reality. Okay, so all he said is to reduce...
You did this the last time we debated. You did this the last time we debated, because when I caught your argument at its head, you didn't want me to say the refutation.
Dude, why are you so obsessed with the last thing?
I'm gonna say it again. Because I know what your argument is. I know what your argument is, and I cut it at the head. You're trying to argue an aggregate form of composition. For us, I didn't tell you the two hypostases are identical to the one hypostasis. I said the two hypostases in union are identical to the one hypostasis, and because they're from different layers of reality, they no longer have their plurality anymore. They're no longer in the union.
You don't?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So literally reducible to what he said besides all of the esoteric, like weird stuff he said.
It isn't.
You just interrupted me. You just interrupted me.
Just don't lie about me, dude.
You just interrupted me.
You don't lie about me.
You just interrupted me.
Okay, just don't lie about me. You can continue.
Do I interrupt you when you like spaz out about Wayne?
Just continue, don't lie. Just continue, don't lie.
I'm not going to waste... Listen. I've got literally about 3 more minutes before I have to go back, because I'm literally in a bathroom, like I said, okay? At work, okay? Last time. This is what he said, like, besides all of that, like, weird stuff, like, truths of reality. He said, one second. He said, oh no, the one divinity is not identical to the whole hypostasis. I never said that. It's when the two come together, they're identical. Hello, that's the same thing for any composite object. All of the parts, you just stop interrupting me. All of the parts, when they come together, constitute the thing if and only if the parts assemble in a certain manner to constitute it. This is the principle of individuation. Just like you say, a chair coming together is composed of all of these different things in a certain manner, and then you constitute it as a chair. Likewise, you just said the same thing about divinity. Now, one sec. The argument here is reducible that you're a partialist. If no part is identical to its whole, and no whole...
You're commenting and making an argument off that. Let me address your comment before you make your conclusion.
Just one second.
You're laying out premises I'm verbatim denying in front of your face, and then you're trying to make a conclusion.
I haven't even laid out the arguments.
I know where you're going. You already told it. I know where you're going.
I haven't laid out the arguments.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Now, please stop strawmanning and address actually what I said. Because I told you two different senses of composition. There's composition from aggregates, and then there's composition from two unlike parts of different layers of reality. Those aren't the same type of composition. They're not just being gathered in a certain specific manner. For example, a table, and I put it in this specific location, and then I put my guitar in that specific location, and then the whole is reducible to that. That is aggregate composition. It's like composition when you have a trash heap, and it composes the full trash heap. You have different parts, and it gets reducible to the whole. That wasn't my argument. I gave you two senses of composition, and you're saying, oh, so you just basically said the same thing, and then that leads to partialism. Why don't you actually address what I said? Don't make straw mans.
Okay, well, I was expecting something else instead of you whining and actually addressing my point.
I just addressed it.
You didn't give a symmetry break, or what?
I did. I told you they're not the same type of composition. Aggregate composition in the material world is because they're of like parts. They're of the same layer of reality. For example, trash with trash is an aggregate composition. They don't have perichoresis. They can't interpenetrate one another. They have to be configured in a specific location at a specific time, in a specific direction, in a specific way. That's aggregate composition. We don't apply that composition in the incarnation because they're not from the same layer of reality. One is divine, and then one is...
what is this random esoteric yap?
This isn't random esoteric yap. This is what
I'm going to lay out the argument. It's very simple, right? This is the logical regimentation under like some sort of mereological like realist commitments, right? You're committed to the position that no whole is a subset of another whole because it means it's a part, and therefore a whole would be a part, and it's no longer a whole because a whole is contained of two or more parts.
But what did I tell you the whole is?
On 1 second, under what you said, you said there's two parts in Christ. And no part is identical to its whole, and no symmetry breaker was offered. All you said is the manner by which the two come together therefore constitutes the whole. Therefore,
that wasn't my symmetry breaker.
anyways, I'm gonna lay out the argument, and then I have to go just so everyone can.
You're gonna lay out, and you're gonna whine after I gave you the refutation, and then leave and pretend like you made an actual solid argument. Look, this is why you're snaking. This is why you're snaking.
I'm done.
Look, this is why you're snaking. Just get off the panel when your argument didn't work.
Everyone just listens to the argument. Stop spazzing.
You're the one that's spazzing. You're saying, I'm not going to hear out your refutation. You said, insert ad hominem. I have to leave soon.
Okay, anyways, so basically the argument basically follows that under some sort of mereological realist commitments, he's committed to the position that no whole is identical to a part, but rather its parts in the manner by which they come together. Now, if divinity is taken as a part, he cannot claim that the human hypostasis of the Son is fully divine under the condition that it's a part. And like we said before, no whole is a subset of another whole because it would be a part, and therefore no part is identical to its whole.
Are you going to hop off the live now?
Yeah, goodbye.
Okay, yeah, get out of my face while I refute you and you have nothing to say about it. Get out of here. Now it's my turn to refute what you just said. We don't apply aggregate composition. I'm not applying composition from the material perspective, where you apply certain things and configure them in certain ways and then have the composition arise from that. I told you, when we affirm those parts that are identical to the whole, it's not by an aggregation of those parts being configured in a certain way. It's by those parts entering natural henosis. And because they're from different layers of reality, they're able to interpenetrate one another enough so that their plurality no longer ceases in the composition. So you're trying to argue composition as if I was collecting things from the same material level and layer of reality. But that's not what I did. And he knew that, which is why he said, I'm going to make my argument and leave.
All right. You good, Egan?
I'm good.
All right, cool. You have a good day, brother.
All right, you too, bro.